afternoon. I hope you all are doing well. So, welcome you all to this wonderful session on how to use ChatGPT as a data scientist. So, even though you're not a data scientist, today what we want to really cover is basically how you can leverage ChatGPT to do the kind of work that you can expect as a data scientist, right? So, thank you so much for joining this session. So, are you guys sort of energized? Can you please give a thumbs up in the chat? Or, yeah, awesome, awesome. All right. So before we go ahead, I want to know a bit about you guys. So overall, what I'm going to do is I'm sharing this padded link. Hang on. So I'm just sharing this padded link over the chat. I'll also show this on stage. So what you need to do, just click on this link, right? And you'll come to this screen, right? So what I'm expecting to you to write. So you can just click on plus and start writing. So just tell me your name, right? Your background, a bit, what you have done, right? Maybe your city as well, and what's your goal eventually, right? So what do you want to become? So keep it like crisp, more or less, spend around like 20 to 30 words max, or 20 words, and just tell me your name, your background, what's your city, where do you belong from, what's your goal. And that is what I just want to know before we sort of go ahead and get started, right? So I think, okay, Pratik, you can edit your answer as well. So I want to know more about. So so people who have not yet logged in, you can just mention your name so that I know who is answering. All right. So just quickly, let's do this. This is a simple exercise, a healthy exercise, so that we all get to know each other more or less, right? So guys, let's be more formal here. Just mention your name, your goal, your city, and your background, right? So you guys can edit your answer, whoever has written, right? So Javed, Giriraj, you can provide more details, right? So let's just do this. This is going to be like pretty simple. Just want to know who are you, and so that I can relate and pace up my session accordingly. All right. Anish, can you jump onto the Padlet and answer there? Dhananjay, guys, please stop. Yeah, posting this answer on the chat. I've shared the Padlet link so that you can answer it there. So please do that. All right. So I think we are getting started getting answers. So Pratik Gupta, you are a BCom graduate. You are doing a data science course on Alma Better. You are from Hardoi. Awesome. Sahil, you're an MBA in finance. You're from Sambalpur. You want to become a good data scientist. Okay, awesome. Avishi Dubey, this side from Indore. You're currently pursuing full stack data science course. Awesome. Uh, okay. Um so Shubham Chogule, you are from Thane. You have done civil engineering. You have completed the data science course as well. Your job is to get the data science, get a job in data science as early as possible. Gayatri Kodwar, you are in final year pursuing BE degree in artificial intelligence and data science. Awesome. You want to become a data scientist. Great. Vaibhav Pandey, operations manager at Funkfeeds Kanpur. You want to switch industry. Awesome. Talib Saifi from Meerut. You are a BTech graduate working as a Magento dev, and you're doing data science course on Alma Better. Awesome. Ashish Upadhyay, you're from Pune. You have done electronics and communication engineering. You have 6 years of experience in telecom. Awesome. And you want to switch your career into data science. You're pursuing full stack data science and AI course. Awesome. Tanisha Chauhan, you are a BTech in CSE. You're from Indore. You want to become a data scientist. Then we have someone called Tushar Ghagde. You're from Maharashtra. You're working as a data analyst, and you're also an Alma Better student. So I can see a lot of Alma Better folks joining into this session, right? Because you're already learning and you'd want to understand how to use ChatGPT. Yuvraj Sharma, you are a civil engineer. You want to become an expert in any field. Okay. All right. You're from Indore. Awesome. Karan Jajotar, you are from Mumbai, Mira Road. You are an MBA in finance. Your goal is to do master from Oxford and want to get settled in London. You want to become an investment banker. You have 2 years of experience in banking. Awesome. Great to know you. Javed, you are from Bangalore. You are an engineering graduate. You want to become an IT professional, right? People who are writing in the chat, please mention on the Padlet, no? so it will be easy for me, right? Next, who else is there? So Tanisha Chauhan, you are a BTech CSE Indore. You want to become a data scientist. Okay. Who else have we left out? Hang on. Okay, Asif, you are from Kashmir. You have done BTech in Electronics and Communication. You are service delivery engineer. Awesome. You want to become a data scientist. All right, Mayuresh Mishra. You are a civil engineer. You are 2017 pass out. Okay, you are studying data science at Alma Mater. I know you, Mayuresh. Awesome. Um, I think Avishi Dubey we have already discussed. All right. Setu Das, you're from Kolkata, West Bengal. So I can see a lot of folks who are either studying in Alma Mater or you are not studying in Alma Mater, but you want to break into the field of data science. And just give me a second, guys. Just give me a second. Sorry about that. So I can see a lot of people who are trying to get into data science, and mostly because you think this is a lucrative career option, and that is what you are more or less aspiring to do or interested to do, right? So thank you so much again for posting your answers here. So now let's go back and try to understand how are we going to more or less do this session, right? So overall, I don't have a presentation because we data scientists, right, whenever we are trying to do anything, the best place for or best playground for us to do any sort of work is Google Colab, right? Do you guys know about Google Colab or Google Collaboratory, Colab Notebook? And can you guys tell me yes or no on the chat? So if you know, that's fine. If you don't know, that's also fine, right? Because we'll learn eventually, right? So a lot of people, okay, some people don't know. Okay, some people know what is a Google Colab. So Google Colab is basically a notebook environment, right? So why I am calling it a notebook, I'll tell you in just a while. But this is a very useful environment where you can do all sorts of Python coding. You can have a lot of text, graphs, charts, and a lot of stuff, right? So let's say if you look at this particular, let's say notebook, right? So I have a lot of text here, and then I also have some of the code also together, right? So we are data scientists. We are not software engineers, so we are not just writing code, but we have to do a lot of other tasks, right? So we want to do a lot of analysis, we want to list a lot of insights. So there's a lot of textual information that we want to write. There would be a lot of graphs and charts that we would want to display in Python, and that is why Google Colab, right, or which is short for Google Collaboratory, is a powerful tool, right? This is a tool by Google. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share this link. What you can do is just open this link. All right, so I'm just sharing this, and I'm showing this on stage. Just click on this link. It is accessible to everyone, right? With whoever I've shared the notebook. So anyone with the link can access it. Just click on it, and you will be uh, inside the notebook. All right. So whatever changes or whatever things that we discuss, it will automatically get reflected in the same notebook, right? It works pretty much the same as a Google Doc. So कोई और अगर लिख रहा है या मैं भी लिख रहा हूँ तो अपडेट सबको ब्रॉडकास्ट हो जाते हैं ऑलमोस्ट रियल टाइम. थोड़ा मोड़ा लैग होता है 9-10 सेकंड का, but everything sort of works really fine, right? So is everyone with me so far? As in, are you able to access Google Colab? So have you opened this? One important thing is because Google Colab needs you to be authenticated to google.com. So please, log into Google or Gmail or whatever. It's the same, and just open this Colab, right? So Rubel, you're saying no. Just open this Colab. No, are you able to just open the link? That's it. You don't have to do much. So just open the link. All right. So now today what we want to really understand is, let's say if you're working in data science, right, and you want or you are a data scientist. So how to become more effective, right? How to get your work done easily, right? And now we have exposure to tools such as ChatGPT, which is awesome in terms of at least code creation, right? So it can generate wonderful code with great, let's say, it can generate optimized code. It can generate wonderful code overall, right? And that's why we want to understand how do we work using ChatGPT to do whatever that we need to do. All right. So now, before we even go ahead and start just uh, talking about the workflow in a proper data science project, right? So before that, I want to understand how many of how many of you guys understand a bit about machine learning, right? Do you have any idea what is even machine learning, right? You can say no if you don't know, because I'm anyway going to talk a bit about it. But do you guys know anything about what is machine learning? What are we even talking about, right? Um, can you mention in the chat? If it's no, that's totally fine because we are anyway going to cover that. All right. Um, cool. No. Okay. 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 So I can see. Uh, okay, the making the machine learn so that it can predict and understand the patterns. So Avishi, I think you are correct here. All right. And all right. So cool. Awesome. So I can see a lot of folks, more than 100 folks have joined in this session. So great. So now let's talk a bit about machine learning, right? So I have this Jamboard. I'll be sharing the PDF for this at the end of the class. So please stay tuned because whatever that we are going to write here, I think Madhav, if you are aware, awesome. We're just going to touch upon this, and then we are going to see how to integrate ChatGPT in a normal data science workflow, right? So overall, so if you think about data science or ML or AI, right? So these are like multiple disciplines, right? And so if I tell you, right, so how does everything sort of fit in a simple picture, right? So let's say, so this is, so we are trying to draw some sort of Venn diagram, right? So let's say this, so this is what we can call as an AI. So let's say, let's assume this universe is what we refer to as an AI, right? So artificial intelligence is any technology, right, which is trying to mimic human intelligence to some level, right? And it can be a simple robot which follows a line, or it can be a complex, let's say, deep learning model or a complex machine learning model. But overall, any technology which tries to mimic, let's say, human intelligence so that it can do a particular task, that is what we'll call as an AI, right? Which is artificial intelligence, as the name suggests. We're trying to build an artificial intelligence, right? Something that can replicate or duplicate human intelligence and does the same amount of work, right? So this is what we call as AI, right? And then now inside this, right, inside this we have another field, right? So I can call something like this, right, which is called ML, right? So ML is more or less a subset of the field of AI, right? So let's say if you're building a simple robot, right, which, let's say, picks up an object and places it on to another place, right, that can be called an AI, right? But it might not be, let's say, a proper, let's say, an ML technology, right? So ML will sort of understand in detail, but first of all, I'm trying to dispel all the confusion between AI, ML, data science, deep learning, and whatnot, right? Now, within machine learning, right, there is another field called deep learning, right? So deep learning is a field which is deep learning is a subset of machine learning only, and this is where a very popular machine learning algorithm known as neural networks, right? So which is the algorithm we are talking about? Neural networks, right? So neural networks is one of the most powerful ML algorithms, right? And a new branch, a new discipline has emerged, that is what we know as deep learning, right? So usually these networks are like pretty big, and they take a lot of time to train. So we'll also understand what is the meaning of training. But this is how more or less AI, ML, and DL sort of fit in, right? So AI is the bigger universe, right? ML is a subset of it, and then DL is a subset of ML, right? Now let's talk about data science, right? So where does data science fit in, right? So data science more or less, right? It touches all the three disciplines, right? So this is DS, which is data science. And then one more important thing, which is very relevant for, let's say, uh, for data science is, I'll just mention. So this is going to be our business or domain knowledge, right? So any data scientist, right, if they don't have good work knowledge of how the business is working, right, or does not have any idea about the domain, right, they're not going to do well, right? So having a good amount of business knowledge, right, um, that really that really is an important asset or a skill for a data scientist, right? So let's say when you're joining as a fresher, right, this might not be like very important, but when you spend like a year or two in the industry, right, and you understand how to, let's say, do data science on a particular industrial data or process, so there the knowledge of business or domain is going to be like pretty useful, right? So a data scientist without any business knowledge is more or less incomplete, right? So this is very important. Just excuse me. Yeah, sorry. Cool. So this is how we more or less think about all these domains, right? So data science is more or less, it can be a simple AI, right? It can be we can build a model which is on a simple, let's say, machine learning algorithm, or in fact things inside, let's say, or concepts inside deep learning will also fall in data science, right? So this is what we know overall. And you must be hearing all these jargons like AI, ML, DL, data science, or kya hota hai ye sab. So I hope this difference is more or less clear, right? So now let's go ahead and talk about data science as a more or less discipline, right? So एक और Venn diagram मैं बना रहा हूँ, right? And this is like pretty important, right? So एक मैंने डब्बा बनाया है which I call as computer science, right? कंप्यूटर साइंस में क्या क्या चीजें हम लोग बोल रहे हैं? तो कंप्यूटर साइंस में आपके पास आ सकता है, let's say, algorithms ka knowledge, right? So understanding of algorithms, and then programming, right? So basically you're writing code, so you're doing a lot of programming. So overall from the domain of computer science we understand ideas about कि क्या algorithms होते हैं, and then programming कैसे करते हैं. So let's say अगर आप Python में ही कर रहे हो, so you need to have a very basic knowledge, right, to, let's say, do whatever that you want to do, right? So ये दोनों कंप्यूटर साइंस के पार्ट हो गए, right? Now एक another domain ले लेते हैं, right, which in fact what I'll do, I'll use another color, right? So there is this another domain, right, which we can call as, let's say, math slash statistics, राइट? सो ये दूसरा डोमेन हो गया, पहला हुआ कंप्यूटर साइंस, नाउ दूसरा डिसिप्लिन है, लेट्स से मैथ्स और स्टैटिस्टिक्स, राइट? सो मैथ्स में क्या क्या मैं मोर लेस बोल रहा हूँ? सो कैलकुलस बोल रहा हूँ, सिंपल कैलकुलस आप लोगों ने 11th में पढ़ा होगा। लीनियर अलजेब्रा ये भी 11th में आप लोगों ने पढ़ा होगा, लीनियर अलजेब्रा, राइट? सो ये एक दूसरा डिसिप्लिन है, राइट, which we call as, let's say, maths overall, right? Because computer science is strictly not maths. It's more or less let's say a theoretical or applied science, a mix of both, but it is not purely maths, right? Now अगर आप देखो एक थर्ड डोमेन मैं लिख रहा हूँ, सो लेट्स डिनोट इट यूजिंग अनदर डिफरेंट कलर ऑल टुगेदर. सो नाउ अब इसको मैं बोल रहा हूँ, लेट्स से बिजनेस और डोमेन नॉलेज, राइट? बिजनेस और डोमेन नॉलेज. नाउ जो डेटा साइंस हुआ, राइट, वो क्या होगा? सो डेटा साइंस विल बी दिस पर्टिकुलर एरिया, राइट? सो ये जो कॉमन एरिया है, राइट, विच इज एट द इंटरसेक्शन ऑफ कंप्यूटर साइंस, मैथ्स एंड बिजनेस नॉलेज, राइट? इसी को हम लोग बोलते हैं, दिस इज व्हाट वी कॉल एज डेटा साइंस, right? So this is what we'll call as data science. So data science is an interdisciplinary, is a multidisciplinary field, right? हम लोग क्या बोलेंगे कि डेटा साइंस इज अ मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी फील्ड which deals with some aspects of computer science from where we understand कि क्या एल्गोरिदम है, कैसे प्रोग्राम करना है. देन एक अदर डोमेन है, एक अदर डिसिप्लिन है which is maths, because we'll use this knowledge to, let's say, do all sorts of work that we want to do in data science, right? And third is your business knowledge. So business के बारे में अगर नहीं पता है तो आप वो डेटा आप समझ नहीं पाओगे overall, and that is where this becomes important, right? So is everyone more or less clear with the definition of data science? ये चमक रहा है सबको? Is everyone understanding this? राइट, कि डेटा साइंस किसको बोलते हैं? वेरी बेसिक, राइट, कि मल्टीपल डिसिप्लिन है, इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी फील्ड है ओवरऑल, राइट? सो इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी कहने का मतलब है कि इट सिट्स एट द इंटरसेक्शन ऑफ मल्टीपल डिसिप्लिन. सो कुछ कंप्यूटर साइंस की नॉलेज चाहिए, थोड़ी सी कुछ मैथ्स की नॉलेज चाहिए, कुछ थोड़ा बिजनेस का नॉलेज चाहिए, राइट? बिजनेस का नॉलेज कहाँ से आता है? एक्सपीरियंस से आता है, राइट? तो थोड़ा मोड़ा आप जितना टाइम स्पेंड करोगे, दिस इज हाउ यू बिल्ड, राइट? एल्गोरिदम्स और प्रोग्रामिंग आप सीखोगे, right? We are teaching that in the course, so you learn that. And maths is what we are also teaching, right? This is something that you have also learned, let's say, in your class 11th, right? So let's say if you're doing commerce, so you don't have to still worry, right? Because we'll be teaching from scratch, right? So जो भी चीज होती है वो फंडामेंटल से ही पढ़ा रहे हैं. So overall, this is what data science encompasses, right? So I hope everyone is more or less clear on this, right? So now अगर आप देखो, अब मशीन लर्निंग के बारे में समझते हैं कि मशीन लर्निंग क्या कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो सो ओवरऑल एक एग्जांपल लेते हैं, राइट? सो लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल, राइट? सो व्हाट इज मशीन लर्निंग? सो दिस इज व्हाट वी वांट टू आंसर राइट नाउ. Hang uh, right. So what is मशीन लर्निंग, राइट? सो ये हमें अभी समझना है. सो हमने ओवरऑल वी अंडरस्टूड कि व्हाट इज डेटा साइंस, बट नाउ वी वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड अ बिट अबाउट मशीन लर्निंग, राइट? सो सम पीपल आल्सो आंसर दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू, लेट्स से, we are trying to build or train machines which can do, let's say, human like task, right? So yeah, human जैसे काम करते हैं इसी चीज को ट्राई कर रहे हैं डुप्लीकेट और रेप्लिकेट करने का, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट मोर लेस वी नो is machine learning, right? So machine learning is like teaching computers to think, right? So computers को समझा रहे कि कैसे सोचना है, right? तो as humans we are able to think, right? But how we allow our computers to think in a way similar to how we think, right? So with machine learning, what can computers do? They can learn from data, they can identify patterns, right? And make predictions or decisions without being told what to do, right? So overall, मैं अगर लिखूं, so it is like teaching computers computers to think, right? Think like a human overall, right? So this is what we are trying to do. And with machine learning, computers can learn from data से कुछ समझ सकते हैं, वो कुछ पैटर्न्स आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हैं जो हम लोग नहीं कर पाएंगे डायरेक्टली. जैसे मेरे को कोई अगर डेटा सेट दिखा दिया, सो डायरेक्टली मैं नहीं बोल पाऊंगा, ऑफ कोर्स हमें देखना पड़ेगा. बट मशीन लर्निंग algorithms can do it in a much better way, in a faster way, in a more efficient way, right? नाउ देखो, मशीन लर्निंग का इंस्पिरेशन कैसे आया? ह्यूमन से आया है, राइट? सो हाउ डू ह्यूमंस लर्न, राइट? So think of an example, right? So think of a, let's say, little toddler. Think of a little baby or kid, right, who is trying to learn from the environment, right? So let's assume this toddler is around 1 or 2 years old, right? So they have just started getting to experience the world around them, right? And now, so how they are learning, how a normal kid or a toddler, right? So you remember you're also a kid, once upon a time, right? So how does a baby learn, right? So a baby, let's say, if it sees a bird sitting at the window, right, it can learn to identify a bird with features like wings, whether it can fly or not, right? So baby, it tries to do some guesswork, right? So it sees कि अच्छा ये bird है, and it has wings, it can fly, so it should be a bird, right? So now what happens next is that a baby on the next day, witnesses a praying mantis, right? So praying mantis, it is an insect. The baby sees that insect sitting on the window again next day, right? Now baby thinks that, hey, this mantis has wings, right? This mantis can also fly, so it must also be a bird, right? A very reasonable hypothesis from a little toddler who is just getting to know the world, right? So it is saying that a mantis के पास भी wings है, ये भी उड़ सकता है, right? So it should also be a bird, right? So this is a basic guesswork from the baby, right? But we know that a mantis is not a bird, right? It is at best an insect, right? So now what does baby do, right? What does real humans do in life, right? So they go ahead and they look out for more distinguishing features, right? So they go ahead, they try to collect data or maybe look at more other creatures, right? So different और birds को देखेंगे और observe करेंगे, right? So this is what we'll do continuously, and we'll try to look for more distinguishing features, right? To identify whether this is a bird or not, right? So overall, the baby over time, it looks for new features. It gather more instances. That means it gather more examples, more data, right? And by looking at this, right, it tries to rectify its past mistakes, right? So whatever mistake that it has done in the past, it tries to improve upon it. It tries to rectify those mistakes overall. So this is how more or less humans learn, right? And machines also, Chirag, can you, yeah, go on mute? Right. Right. This session will be recorded. So, yeah, this session will be recorded. Okay. So now we are trying to understand machine learning, and to understand machine learning, पहले ये समझना होगा, right? How does humans learn, right? Because we are trying to mimic our intelligence and make a machine capable of, let's say, reproducing or uh, rebuilding that sort of intelligence, right? So as I gave the example, as humans, right, we constantly look for newer features, newer distinguishing features, so that I can understand what is happening around my world, right? Do I know if this is actually a bird or not, right? So to understand all of that, we try to gather more instances. The more examples we have, the more better we will be at our guesswork, right? So this is how humans are trying to learn, and more or less machines, they also try to learn in a similar way, right? So more or less machine learning is a discipline, right, where we are trying to make machines learn by automating a lot of, let's say, processes, by applying some science, कुछ कुछ साइंस लगा के कैसे ये मशीन सीख सकते हैं, and they can, let's say, improve upon their mistakes on their own, right? So this is what we more or less want to do, right, in machine learning, right? So overall यही होता है कि भाई कुछ मेरे पास डेटा है, इससे मैं क्या सीख सकता हूँ, and what can I, let's say, predict in future, right? So what can I understand from this data, and what can I predict on the basis of that, right? So machine learning is more or less that, right? So and you guys must be seeing a lot of applications of machine learning here and then, right? So you see the self-driving cars, right, like by Tesla. That's machine learning, right? You are speaking something, let's say, on your let's say fire stick remote, and it is playing, let's say you are saying, hey, play this song on YouTube, right? And it detects that speech, and it plays that video, right? So this is speech recognition, which is also a part of machine learning, right? A lot of, let's say, machine learning is traditional machine learning, which are used by, let's say, banks, or let's say e-commerce companies, और जो इंडस्ट्रियल प्लेयर्स है मेजरली वो यूज कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे स्टैटिस्टिक्स यूज होता है, मशीन लर्निंग यूज होता है ओवरऑल. Then we also have something called, let's say, natural language processing, where and chat gpt is one example of that, right? So it generates text like how a human would do, right? So it is now, so a tool like chat gpt, right, it is very smart at doing what, let's say, a human would do, right? So let's say if you ask a human, hey, can you write this email, I need to send this to my boss, and chat gpt can write, in fact, a better email than you, right? So machines are becoming smarter at tasks that we humans earlier we thought that हम ही बस कर सकते हैं, हमसे ही हो पाएगा, मशीन से नहीं हो पाएगा. But Today machines are like doing all those tasks, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of tasks which they are much better at what as compared to humans overall, right? So this is what machine learning is. Now machine learning के अंदर बहुत सारे disciplines हैं overall. अगर आप देखो different types of machine learning exist. One is called supervised learning, another is called unsupervised learning, right? And this is what you are all going to learn in the machine learning module. And the last is something called reinforcement learning, right? Which is a relatively not a new field, but it has gained a lot of interest in the last few years, right? So सुपरवाइज लर्निंग क्या होता है ये सब हम लोग समझेंगे ओवरऑल. बट let's come back to our main topic, right? So I think we have gathered enough context. हमारे पास enough context है अभी कि machine learning क्या होता है. Now अभी what I want to discuss is basically what kind of work that you can expect as a data scientist, right? So what kind of problems that you can, let's say, focus on, right? So I talked about something called, right? So I talked about something called supervised learning, right? So this is one of the fields in let's say in machine learning, right? So supervised learning, what is it? So hang on. So supervised learning is a type of machine learning, right, where we have a labeled data set, right? So let's say एक एग्जांपल लेते हैं, राइट? तो एक लोन एप्लीकेशन डेटा सेट का एग्जांपल लेते हैं, राइट? सो अब ये यूज केस क्या है, राइट? व्हाई वुड वी इवन नीड टू सॉल्व दिस काइंड ऑफ प्रॉब्लम, let's say using machine learning, right? So let's try to understand the problem, right? So let's say you want to take a loan, right? Let's say from HDFC Bank. What you do, you go ahead and you log into their website, right? And in the loan application section, right, you go ahead and apply for a loan, right? So when you apply, you are sharing a lot of details, right? Let's say what's your income, right? What's your let's say disposable income, for example. In which area you live, right? What is your work experience? What is your let's say expenses? So you can share a lot of data while filling up the application, right? Now HDFC Bank, right, they are a big bank, right? They must be getting more than lakh applications every day to get a loan, right? Now HDFC ये मैनुअली तो नहीं कर सकता, राइट? सो जैसे मैंने अप्लाई करा लोन के लिए, तो एचडीएफसी में कोई बंदा मैनुअली बैठ के मेरा एप्लीकेशन अप्रूव या रिजेक्ट नहीं कर रहा, राइट? राइट? और नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज 1 लाख एप्लीकेशंस मैनुअली आप लेट्स से अप्रूव और रिजेक्ट कराना, राइट? दिस इज नॉट feasible overall, right? So here what we want to do is we want to tell or we want to predict whether based basis on the basis of the application data, right, whether can I approve or reject this loan, right? So this is basically, so a customer comes onto the SDFC platform, right? So this is the a very simple example of supervised learning that I'm trying to tell you, and this is what we are going to, let's say, use to understand कि कैसे चैट जीपीटी यूज करेंगे इस वर्कफ्लो में. तो पहले प्रॉब्लम समझते हैं कि प्रॉब्लम क्या है, राइट? सो अ कस्टमर कम्स ऑन टू द एचडीएफसी website, right, and applies for a loan, right? So when I say applies, that means, so by applying, what we mean is the customer shares a lot of data related to their profile. सो ओवरऑल लोन अप्लाई करने का मतलब ये है कि आप अपना डेटा दे रहे हो, एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म भर रहे हो, राइट? एंड नाउ द नेक्स्ट थिंग वुड बी, राइट, सो whether your application whether your application is going to get approved or rejected, right? So SDFC will make such decision, right? So SDFC यही decision बनाएगा कि आपका लोन अप्रूव करना है या आपका लोन let's say reject करना है, right? So दो ही केस हो सकते हैं, right? So whether your application can get approved and you can get the loan eventually, but let's say the another case would be that your application is not getting approved, it's getting rejected, and SDFC ने बोल दिया है कि I'm not going to approve your loan because maybe your CIBIL score is not good, or let's say you have a history of let's say payment failures, so we cannot go ahead and approve let's say your loan application. So this is what we call as, right, a simple classification problem, right? So classification is one of the major important problems in supervised learning, right? So क्लासिफिकेशन क्यों हुआ? बिकॉज मेरे पास जो आउटपुट है, राइट, देयर कैन बी ओनली टू आउटपुट्स, राइट, बाइनरी है. वन इज ईदर इट इज अप्रूव्ड और इज इट रिजेक्टेड, राइट. सो देयर आर ओनली टू स्टेट्स an application can be tagged or labeled as, right? So whether that application is approved or it is rejected. So this is a simple let's say scenario, and for this scenario we are going to extrapolate and see how we can do our work, right? So is everyone with me in terms of, let's say, understanding the problem statement, right? Is everyone able to understand the problem statement? कि प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट क्या है? कि एक लोन एप्लीकेशन आपने भरा है, एचडीएफसी बैंक को क्या करना है? वो अप्रूव करना है, रिजेक्ट करना है, राइट? So now SDFC has a lot of constraint, right? So they have, so SDFC bank has a lot of constraint, right? So क्या constraint है? They do not have uh, they do not have such manpower, right, to manually take decision on each application. So here I'm assuming, so assumption is SDFC gets 1 lakh, let's say greater than 1 lakh applications every day, right? So this is the constraint that SDFC bank is operating with, right? अगर let's say technology नहीं होती, right? If you didn't have technology, so compare this with, let's say, 20 years back, right? We did not have exposure to such kind of technology. तो SDFC उस समय कैसे कर रहा होता? वो एक बंदा बैठाया होता, right? So they would have a person sitting on the desk, right, who is getting idea about कि किसने application भरा है, and then they would, let's say, manually do some checks, and they will say that, hey, I am going to, let's say, approve or reject this application, right? But given the size of the bank and the number of applications that they're getting every day, it's almost impossible to do it through manual effort, right? So we have to automate it, right? So the requirement is, uh, so the need is to automate this decision making, right? So we need to automate this decision making overall. That means as soon as I get an application, right, for a particular customer or for a particular applicant, I should be able to tell, let's say, within a minute whether this their application is going to be approved or rejected, right? And how can I automate this decision making? I can use something called machine learning, and especially we can use an idea of supervised learning, and within that, this is what we call as classification problem. तो classification problem क्या होता है? Overall, when you want to predict or output, let's say, some discrete set of outcomes, right? So जैसे इस केस में हर एक एप्लीकेशन डेटा, राइट? सो अगर मैं आपको दिखाऊं, so let's say ये एप्लीकेशन डेटा, let's say एप्लीकेशन data one है, right? ये let's say this is for particular customer, let's say customer number one, right? So इसके लिए उसने data दिया है. So इस पे क्या outcome हो सकते हैं? Let's say the loan application can be approved, right? There could be another application too. This is for, let's say, another customer, right? This is for another customer, let's say number two, and for some reason, let's say their application is not approved. This is rejected, right? So for another, let's say, application three, this is for another customer, right? Number, let's say, three, and this is where, let's say, their application is approved, right? So you can see the outcome for any application, right? Or whatever the decision that we want to do, right? It is more or less, it consists of only two possible outcomes. दो ही possible outcome है, either वो application approve होगा या either वो application reject होगा, right? So this is what we call as classification problem. as in you classify in either in one of the state whether an application is going to be approved or rejected, right? So let's see, अगर कोई मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल होता, राइट, सो कोई मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल होता तो वो कैसे काम करता? तो उसको मिल रहा है एक एप्लीकेशन डेटा, सो लेट्स से दिस इज एप्लीकेशन नंबर 4, and so this gets passed to, so this data gets passed to, let's say, a, a machine learning model, right? We learn about कि मॉडल क्या होता है, क्या समझते हैं, बट ये चीज हो गया. नाउ इट विल प्रिडिक्ट basis on the data, right, whether the decision will be approved or rejected, right? And इसी दोनों में से कुछ ना कुछ होगा, right? इसी दोनों में से कुछ ना कुछ होगा, whether my decision is going to be approved or rejected, right? So if the machine does it, so it can only predict two outcomes, one of the two outcomes, approved or rejected, for a single application. And this is what we call as a classification problem, right? So we're trying to classify our, let's say, output for that particular application. So is this clear to everyone? ये समझ में आ रहा है guys आप लोग को? Is this clear to everyone? What I am trying to tell about classification. क्लासिफिकेशन समझ में आया? आई थिंक सिंपल ही है. सो एक एप्लीकेशन डेटा है, उस पर क्या डिसीजन जाएगा. सो जो डिसीजन का जो वैल्यू है, राइट, जो आउटपुट है, उसी को मैं बोल रहा हूं अप्रूव्ड और रिजेक्टेड, राइट? सो आई होप दिस इज क्लियर टू एवरीवन. So this is what we also call as let's say a dependent variable. इसको बोलते हैं डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल भी बोलते हैं. किसको? जो मेरा फाइनल स्टेटस है, लोन एप्लीकेशन का जो स्टेटस होगा, राइट? दिस इज एन एप्लीकेशन स्टेटस ओनली, राइट? So this is what we call as a dependent variable or an output variable, right? And this is what the model is supposed to output, right? So output this decision in this particular way, right? Or either is it approved or rejected. So overall, this is what we want to do, right? So now, let's try to so एक बार समझते हैं कि डेटा क्या क्या हो सकता है, राइट? सो एक सैंपल डेटा मैंने लोड किया हुआ है. व्हाट आई विल डू is basically I'll share the data with you guys as well. So just give me a second. मैं डेटा भी आपके साथ शेयर कर रहा हूँ so that you can also play around with it. And I have got this data from Kaggle, if you guys know Kaggle. So मैं master class एक बार search कर लेता हूँ. This is where I have saved my data. So right, so I'll give access to everyone. So copy link. सो देखो, ये दो डेटा है मेरे पास, लोन का टेस्ट और ट्रेन डेटा, राइट? सो हम लोग समझेंगे ट्रेन और टेस्ट क्या होता है फर्स्ट, बट अभी के लिए आई हैव शेयर दिस लोन ट्रेन डेटा एंड आई एम शेयरिंग दिस ओवर द चैट. एक बार आप देखो. यस यस, रिकॉर्डिंग विल बी अवेलेबल, सो यू डोंट हैव टू वरी, राइट? सो रिकॉर्डिंग विल बी अवेलेबल, यू डोंट हैव टू वरी. ऑलराइट, सो ये डेटा सेट है. एंड सो इस डेटा सेट को कैसे लोड करेंगे? तो पहले कोलैब में क्या करना होगा, ये कोड आपको ऑलरेडी मिला हुआ है, आपको बस ये सिंपल रन करना है, राइट? सो ये मेरा माउंट हो चुका है, ठीक है? ड्राइव पहले माउंट करना होता है सो दैट माय कोलैब नोटबुक हैज एक्सेस टू द डेटा इनसाइड माय ड्राइव. ओके, सो नाउ आई हैव दिस लोन ट्रेन डॉट csv डेटा. एंड इस डेटा को समझते हैं कि इस डेटा में क्या क्या है, राइट? सो लेट्स गो अहेड and overall and try to see what is this data, right? So now let's say if I do print out the top 10 rows of my data set, right? So हर एप्लीकेशन का एक बार देखते क्या क्या है. तो हर एप्लीकेशन में पहले बता, so this data is कि what is the gender of the applicant, whether the applicant is married or not, how many dependents are there for this applicant, what is their education, are they self-employed, what is their income, what is the co-applicant income, if any such co-applicant is there, what is the loan amount that this applicant is seeking, what is the term that they are seeking in this loan, what is their credit history, or overall you can have something like, let's say, their credit score or whatever, right? Or this could be credit history with that company only. So let's say SDFC में मैंने एक लोन लिया था पहले, बट एक और नया लोन लेने गया मैं, right? So my credit history could be marked as 1. That means I have some credit history with the bank overall, right? अगर zero है, that means I have not taken loan with this bank ever in my life. This is my first time, right? So 1 means that the applicant would have taken, let's say, applied or taken a loan from this bank, right? We also have this data. What is the area of this applicant, right? Are they coming from the urban area or are they coming from the rural areas, right? And on the basis of all this data, right, you can see that if you look at one row, on the basis of this data, right, we will have a loan or application status called yes or no. Yes would be for would be to approve, um, overall, and no would be where your application is getting rejected, right? So is everyone sorry, I think I need to share my tab again, right? So guys, just excuse me for a second. राइट. सो इफ यू सी हियर गाइस, मैं क्या बता रहा हूँ, देखो एक एक लोन का डेटा है, हमने ये डेटा क्या किया, पहले ड्राइव माउंट कर लिया. आपको बस कोड रन करना है, आपका कोड रन कर जाएगा. यहाँ पे ये डेटा का पाथ आप यहीं डाल दो. सो लेट्स से जहां पे भी मैंने डाला है तो उसका पाथ मैं कैसे निकालूंगा. सो यहाँ पे आप जाओ फोल्डर, जब ड्राइव माउंट कर दोगे तो यहाँ पे आपका गूगल ड्राइव का आ जाएगा. तो आप देखो गूगल ड्राइव में आपके माई ड्राइव होता है. माई ड्राइव में ही सारे फोल्डर, तो जहां पे भी आप डेटा रखोगे अपना, वो मैं पाथ मोरलेस दे दूंगा. सो फॉर एग्जांपल इन माय केस द डेटा वाज एट मास्टर क्लास डेटा, राइट? सो यहाँ पे लोन ट्रेन सीएसवी है, यहाँ पे तीन डॉट में क्लिक करो एंड यू कॉपी पाथ. सो व्हेन आई कॉपी दिस पाथ, ये यहाँ पे मैं पेस्ट कर दूंगा. सो दिस इज द सेम पाथ, राइट? सो यू ट्राई टू डू दिस, राइट? बट ओवरऑल वी वांट टू रियली अंडरस्टैंड कि कैसे इस ऐसे टाइप के प्रॉब्लम को हम लोग चैट जीपीटी से सॉल्व कर सकते हैं ओवरऑल, राइट? So now you can see that these are the columns in this data set, right? So एक रो समझते हैं, पहला एप्लीकेंट का डेटा, एक this is the first row, right? Each row is a unique application. You need to understand each row here is a unique application, right? So in this row we have the gender, married, dependents है या नहीं, education, self-employed, applicant income, co-applicant income, what is the loan amount that they are applying for or requesting, what is the term of the loan that they are thinking, what's their credit history, right? What is their area where they live, right? Is it urban or rural? And now this status, right, this is what we call as the output or dependent variable. So on the basis of all this data, right, on the basis of all this data, uh, my status would be either y or n, मतलब yes or no. So yes stands for yes, this application is approved. N is for this application is rejected. So our first application, we can see that this was approved, this is rejected, this was again approved, this was rejected. So this particular application. So this is the data set that we have, right? So are you guys able to understand? Uh, so classification can be depicted as decision making, right? So we're making a decision, right, whether to approve a loan or not, right? So एक बार confirm कर दोगे guys, are you able to understand this data? What is the data we have? So this is the data of loan applications, right? So where a lot of people have applied for a loan application, and we have a status mark against all these applications, and it has only two values, yes or no, right? So I hope everyone is able to understand this bit. Okay, awesome. So now what we are going to do is basically, so now you can see that, no, so so in this data set, right? So if you can see, I'll just show you. So df dot, let's say I do something like this. Hang on, wait a second. Right. So you can see that for our status variable, right? So 422 applications were marked Y. That means all 422 applications were basically approved. And then 192 applications were marked N. That means these were not approved. These were rejected, right? And how many total data we have? 422 plus 192. That means we have 614 rows in our data set, right? So we have 614 rows in our data set overall. तो अब देखो अब क्या होता है, अब ऐसा प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट आपके पास है कि एक लोन एप्लीकेशन का डेटा सेट है. यू हैव टू बिल्ड अ मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल टू build a classifier which makes a decision on any loan application overall. So this is the problem statement that we have. I'll write it explicitly here, right? So what is our objective? Our objective is to build a machine learning model, right? And this model is, in this case, we will call this a classifier, because it will classify a particular application into approved or rejected. So it's to build a machine learning model which predicts um, the approval decision, right, for a for an application, right? And when we can do this for all applications, right, same approach. So overall, this is our objective, right, कि एक मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल बनाना है, ये डेटा सेट है. सो नाउ व्हाट इज इट दैट वी कैन डू, राइट? चैट जीपीटी अब यूज करना स्टार्ट करते हैं, राइट? सो फॉर एग्जांपल व्हाट आई कैन, सो चैट जीपीटी एक बार शेयर करते हैं, राइट? आर यू गाइज एबल टू सी चैट जीपीटी? राइट. सो नाउ चैट जीपीटी यूज करते हैं, समझते हैं कि इसको कैसे करेंगे, राइट? सो ओवरऑल मान लो कि लेट्स से आई जस्ट नो द डेटा सेट, आई डोंट नो एनीथिंग अबाउट मशीन लर्निंग, क्या करना है क्या नहीं, बट चैट जीपीटी से कुछ पूछ सकते हैं. सो लेट्स गो अहेड. सो मैं ऐसा लिखूंगा कि I have, let's say, a loan data set. So so I can write, and I try to be nice. So I write, hey, ChatGPT, I have a loan application data set, a non-loan data set. I have an application data set, right, which has 614 rows, and how many columns do we have? So एक बार just check कर लेते हैं, how many columns do we have? So length of this list will be, so you don't need to worry about the code, right, because you'll learn eventually, right? So we have 12 columns totally. So what is that is what I'll write, 12 columns. So I have a loan application data set which has 614 rows and 12 columns, with um, application status, right, as the dependent variable, right? So this is what I'm trying to write, right? Application status as the dependent variable. Um, uh, this variable can take, so this is the prompt that I'm writing to ChatGPT. I don't know anything as of now. I don't know how to build machine learning model. क्या process होता है, क्या flow होता है. I don't know anything, right? So I'm blindly trying to trust ChatGPT with this, right? So I'm trying to write my prompt. Okay, this variable can take only two values, uh, approved or rejected, for example, right? Um, the independent variables, which are the other rest of the variables, we'll call them independent. The independent variables are, so ये variables हम लोग copy paste कर लेते हैं जो हमने यहाँ पे देखा है. So we have seen all these columns. So what I can do is I can just print out my columns of my, right? So I can just go ahead and just copy paste this, right? So ChatGPT hopefully should be able to understand this, right? So now what I want to do, right? So what I can do is basically I can ask ChatGPT again after this. So I've set up the context. So now I can ask ChatGPT, can you list these steps that I have to follow to develop an end-to-end project for my portfolio, right? So this is what I'm trying to get from ChatGPT, right? So now ChatGPT is more or less suggesting these steps, right? So right, so let's go ahead and just copy paste this and paste this in our collab notebook, right? So this is what we will yeah, just copy paste this in our so I'll just click on text cell. Now I can go ahead and create this, right? So now isko step by step समझते हैं. So the first step, right? The first step is going to be अंडरस्टैंडिंग द डेटा, राइट? सो चैट जीपीटी ने ये बोला कि आपने डेटा बता दिया है, लेट्स ट्राई टू फर्स्ट अंडरस्टैंड द डेटा, राइट? सो व्हाट आर द थिंग्स दैट we need to more or less do when we mean what we mean by understanding the data. So overall, ChatGPT is saying that hey, to understand the data, you begin by loading and exploring your data set. You check for missing values and outliers, and understand the distribution of each variable, right? And then it's saying analyze the balance of the target variable to ensure that there is no significant class balance, right? So this is the first step that ChatGPT suggested me, right? Next, what it is suggesting. So this is step one overall, right? So for doing any kind of machine learning work, right, this is going to be our step one, right? So we need to first understand what is the data, right? And this is where actually, if you have a good business knowledge or business understanding, you'll be able to understand the data in a better way, right? Now, our step two is going to be data pre-processing, right? So we are not guaranteed कि डेटा हमारा सही होगा ओवरऑल, उसमें कुछ ना कुछ दिक्कत हो सकती है, कुछ ना कुछ हमें करना होगा, मे बी कुछ प्रोसेसिंग करना होगा, ताकि जो डेटा जिसपे मैं ट्रेनिंग करूंगा वो डेटा सही रहे, राइट? So this is what we want to do in data pre-processing, and this is where you can see that we want to handle missing values, we want to convert categorical variables to numerical format, right? We want to maybe standardize or normalize these features, right? And let's be honest, maybe हो सकता है आप लोग को ये सारी चीजें समझ में नहीं आ रही हो, राइट? कि ये क्या होता है, स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन क्या होता है, नॉर्मलाइजेशन क्या होता है, फॉरगेट एवरीथिंग, राइट? हम लोग क्या ट्राई करें समझने का कि अगर मुझे कुछ भी नहीं आता है, मेरे पास एक बस डेटा सेट दिया हुआ है, राइट? सो हाउ कैन आई गो अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट आर द थिंग्स टू इवन डू when I'm talking about building a classifier for this loan data set, right? Next, step 3 would be to do an exploratory data analysis, right? So ये मैंने चैट जीपीटी से ही कॉपी पेस्ट करके लिखा है। नॉर्मलाइजेशन, ये फीचर नॉर्मलाइजेशन की बात हो रही है अर्शदीप, इट विल बी टॉट इन मशीन लर्निंग, राइट? So this is not the batch normalization that you might have read in deep learning, but this is just the feature normalization or standardization. So ये scaling की part है. So I hope you understand, right? So अब देखो step 3 ChatGPT ने क्या बोला कि step 3 है exploratory data analysis, right? This is what we teach in our second module. So overall, what it is saying that visualize the data distribution, correlations, and relationships among variables. Use plots and charts to gain insights into the data set, right? Identify patterns and potential outliers that may impact your model, right? So अभी तक मॉडल बिल्ड नहीं करा है हमने. A model is just a function, okay? जैसे मैथ्स में आपने पढ़ा होगा, एक फंक्शन है, एक इनपुट लेता है, वो फंक्शन कुछ करता है, एक आउटपुट देता है. मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल भी वैसा है कि कुछ इनपुट लेता है, कुछ आउटपुट देता है ओवरऑल, राइट? सो एक्सप्लोरेटरी डेटा एनालिसिस करने को बोला चैट जीपीटी ने कि इस डेटा पे आप कुछ कुछ थोड़ा कोरिलेशन देखो, कुछ प्लॉट्स बनाओ, चार्ट्स बनाओ, समझो कि डेटा सेट में क्या हो रहा है, राइट? कुछ पैटर्न आपने आइडेंटिफाई किया है, सो ट्राई टू मे बी नोट दोस डाउन, राइट? So now the step 4 would be to do feature engineering, right? And what I mean by feature is essentially the variables that we have, right? So this is education can be called a feature, right? Self-employed can be called a feature, right? So feature को variable भी बोलते हैं, right? So features, so I'll just basically, so यहाँ पे लिख देता हूँ. So इसको आप either features बोलो या variables बोलो, right? Or you can also call them columns, right? So now we want to do feature engineering, right? This is what ChatGPT is telling us, right? What does it mean? So it is saying that create new features if needed based on domain knowledge or insights gained from EDA, right? So now you see, if you are working, let's say, as an analyst at SDFC or as a data scientist, and they ask you, hey, can you build this loan classifier application classifier model for me so that we can, let's say, automate all these with a high enough accuracy, right? So there can be situations where my model predicts कि इस application को reject कर देते हैं, but ideally उसको approve करना चाहिए. And other case भी हो सकता है कि बहुत सारे ऐसे case भी होंगे where when my model approves a loan application, but ideally it should have rejected, right? So there can be some errors, but overall, our objective is to build a robust classifier जिससे मैं सही से predict कर पाऊं कि इसको approve करना है या reject करना है. So it is saying कि यार create new features if needed, right? And it could be on the basis of domain knowledge. So अगर लोन इंडस्ट्री के बारे में अगर ज्यादा आइडिया है, फिनटेक कैसे चलता है, क्रेडिट रिस्क के बारे में आइडिया है, so you will be able to develop better features based on what you already have, right? And this is where I'm trying to talk about domain knowledge. Domain knowledge होगा तभी you will be able to engineer or create really good variables or features which will be passed into the model, right? So वो features आप बना सकते हो, and we'll see कि कैसे बना सकते हैं. चैट जीपीटी से कोड भी जनरेट करेंगे हम लोग, right? So it is saying create new features, do some feature scaling or transformation if required, and so this is what they are saying in step 4. Now step 5 would be splitting the data, right? So usually क्या होता है मशीन लर्निंग में, एक ट्रेनिंग डेटा सेट होता है, एक टेस्टिंग डेटा सेट होता है, राइट? एंड आपको मैंने दिखाया ड्राइव में, वी हैड टू डेटा सेट, वन वाज लोन ट्रेन एंड अनदर वाज लोन टेस्ट, राइट? सो यूजुअली क्या होता है, वी ट्रेन ऑन 80% ऑफ द डेटा सेट, जिसको मैं ट्रेनिंग डेटा सेट बोलूंगा, and we test our model, we try to evaluate our model on the test data set, right, which the model does not has not seen, and that would be around 20% of my data set. So 80-20 split hota hai overall. So this is the uh, overall this step 5, right? So step 5 के बाद अब क्या है, step 5 के बाद है building the model, right? So step 6 would be building the model. देखो अभी तक मैंने खुद का कुछ नहीं करा, I have not used my knowledge at all. This is what I'm trusting on ChatGPT completely. ChatGPT को मैंने अभी तक बोला कि भाई मेरे पास ये डेटा सेट है, I want to do something like this. Can you generate a step by step list so that I can do this task, right? So and this is what ChatGPT gave us, right? So it is saying that to build the model, you choose an appropriate machine learning algorithm for binary classification problem, because this is a binary classification, because we have only two outputs, right? One is, let's say, approved or rejected, and that is why we are calling this as a binary classification problem, right? Now, so this is step 6 where you build the model, you train your model overall. तो यहाँ पे ट्रेनिंग के लिए भी कुछ कुछ हम लोग चीजें कर सकते हैं, कैसे ट्रेन करेंगे वो पता चलेगा, बट अभी के लिए देखते हैं स्टेप 7 क्या बोला चैट जीपीटी ने. सो इट इज सेइंग मॉडल इवैल्यूएशन, राइट? So essentially it is saying that evaluate your model. So of course you have built your model, you have trained your model. मॉडल अगर मैं आपको समझाऊं ओवरऑल इन सिंपल लेमन टर्म्स, राइट, कि मॉडल क्या होता है, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट अ मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल इज, राइट? मैं बताता हूं. सो राइट, सो यहां पे देखो, सो लेट्स से ये एक बॉक्स है जिसको मैं बोल रहा हूं एमएल मॉडल, राइट? इसको गया कोई इनपुट, सो इनपुट फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से वन एप्लीकेशन का एक डेटा गया इनपुट, राइट? सो एप्लीकेशन डेटा वाज सेंड एज एन इनपुट, राइट? एंड देन द मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल इट takes in the input and it does some sort of operation inside it, right? We do not exactly know what is happening inside it because we haven't yet actually learned machine learning कि ट्रेनिंग कैसी होती है, बट कुछ ना कुछ वो करता है, राइट? एंड इससे एक आउटपुट जनरेट करता है, राइट? एंड इन आवर केस व्हाट विल बी द आउटपुट, ईदर यस और नो, राइट? दैट मींस अप्रूव्ड और रिजेक्टेड. सो दिस इज लाइक अ फंक्शन ओनली, एक फंक्शन है इन अ वे, अब समझो एक फंक्शन है विच, सो इसको मान लो x बोलो और आउटपुट को y बोलो, तो फंक्शन एक x पे काम करता है और एक y एक प्रेडिक्ट करता है, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट अ मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल इज ओवरऑल. सो अगर आपने लाइफ में कभी ना कभी फंक्शन अगर पढ़ा होगा, सो यू वुड बी एबल टू रिकॉल कि the value so this ml model is actually a function. It takes in an input and वो इनपुट को प्रोसेस करके एक आउटपुट देता है. यहाँ पे एक आउटपुट जो है वो बाइनरी आउटपुट है, yes और no, दो ही वैल्यूज है इसके ओवरऑल. सो दिस इज हाउ वी वांट टू थिंक अबाउट व्हाट इज एन एमएल मॉडल, राइट? सो now let's come back to our collab. So step 7 is now doing model evaluation, right? So model अब evaluate करना है, तो ये देखो यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है कुछ कुछ कि evaluate your model, utilize a confusion matrix, consider cross validation. ये सब चीजें हमने नहीं सीखी अभी तक, बट चैट जीपीटी ने फिर भी बोला कि ये सब स्टेप आपको करने होंगे, राइट? सो जब हम लोग बन जाएंगे स्मार्ट डेटा साइंटिस्ट, तो हमें समझ में आएगा एग्जैक्टली कि व्हाट इट इज ट्राइंग टू से. Now, step 8, what ChatGPT is suggesting कि do some sort of hyperparameter tuning, right? So hyperparameter tuning, overall hyperparameter क्या हो सकता है? So ऐसा समझो, इसको again same आते हैं. So ऐसा समझो कि this ML model is like a radio. एक रेडियो आपने देखा है ना, तो रेडियो के बाहर में कुछ नॉब्स होते हैं, राइट? कुछ कुछ नॉब्स होते हैं छोटे छोटे, राइट? you can have some switch. So let's say ये knobs जब मैं control करूंगा, right? So this will tweak my ML model, उसके parameters को tweak करेगा. So these knobs is what we call as hyper parameter. Okay, अभी नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, that is totally fine, but this is what we call as hyper parameter. जो चीज मैं कंट्रोल कर सकता हूँ बाहर से, वही हाइपर पैरामीटर है. तो वो एल्गोरिदम का कुछ कुछ हाइपर पैरामीटर होगा जिसको मैं थोड़ा कंट्रोल करूंगा, तो उससे मेरा मॉडल डिटरमिन होगा कि क्या मॉडल बनेगा. एंड वो मॉडल को फिर मैं अगर इनपुट डेटा दूंगा तो एक आउटपुट देगा, राइट? So this is what we call as hyperparameter tuning. You learn about this in machine learning. But the point is, ChatGPT told us कि this should be your step 8. कि when you have evaluated your model, try to do some hyperparameter tuning, right? So this is what they are telling us, right? Step 9 क्या होगा? Model interpretation. कि जो भी आपने मॉडल बनाया है, right? if you if you make or build any model, right? So I'll just share this again. So step 9 is model interpretation. कि जो भी मॉडल बनाया है उसको इंटरप्रेट करते हैं कि सही है या नहीं. तो फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से आज मैं एचडीएफसी के पास गया, उसने मेरा लोन रिजेक्ट कर दिया, राइट? तो नाउ अब क्या होगा कि अब मेरे पास तो आई हैव दिस राइट टू आस्क टू एचडीएफसी कि भाई व्हाई डिड यू रिजेक्ट माय लोन, राइट? So that is where SDFC needs to up their game, and उनको समझ में आना चाहिए कि जो मेरा मॉडल प्रेडिक्ट कर रहा है वो क्यों कर रहा है वैसा. Why did it reject this particular let's say application? तो ऑफ कोर्स वो कुछ प्रोबेबिलिटी लो प्रोबेबिलिटी होगी अप्रूवल की, तो उसने बोला कि नहीं यार देयर इज नो हाई प्रोबेबिलिटी ऑफ अप्रूवल, सो आई एम गोइंग टू रिजेक्ट दिस. तो बट वो प्रोबेबिलिटी स्कोर भी कैसे आ रहा है, तो वो सब ऑफ कोर्स आप पढ़ोगे समझोगे. बट overall the idea is कि you want to really interpret and understand कि why is your model predicting whatever it is predicting, right? And then maybe let's say कि last step होगा कि deploy your मॉडल. सो जो भी लेट्स से कि मशीन लर्निंग इंजीनियर होगा वो जाके आपका मॉडल लेगा और वो जाके प्रोडक्शन में डिप्लॉय कर देगा. सो जब भी कोई रियल टाइम यूजर आएगा एचडीएफसी के साइट पे, वो एप्लीकेशन प्रोवाइड करेगा, ये मॉडल रन होगा और वो 1 मिनट के अंदर डिसीजन दे देगा whether to approve or reject this application, right? So these are the steps that ChatGPT gave us, right? So we didn't know anything about what to do in machine learning. We just had access to a loan application data set. So now ChatGPT is saying that, hey, your step one should be कि data समझो, फिर process करो, EDA थोड़ा कर लो, थोड़े कुछ features बना लो, right? Try to split the data into train and test. You build the model, right? That means you train the model, and then you do a model evaluation. आप हाइपर पैरामीटर ट्यून करो ताकि आपका मॉडल और इम्प्रूव हो. एंड देन यू कैन डू अ मॉडल इंटरप्रिटेशन, समझ सकते हो कि मॉडल कैसा बिहेव कर रहा है ओवरऑल. एंड देन फाइनली यू कैन लेट्स से डिप्लॉय एंड ये प्रोडक्शन पे जा सकते हैं. सो दीज आर दी स्टेप्स, राइट? नाउ let's try to understand step by step, right? So now let's try to understand step by step. So अभी मुझे अगर बोला गया है कि ईडीए करो फॉर एग्जांपल, राइट? सो इट टोल्ड मी, हमने थोड़ा सा डेटा देख लिया था ऑलरेडी, तो अंडरस्टैंडिंग हमें है एक बेसिक. प्री प्रोसेसिंग हमने नहीं करा, बट लेट्स से दिस इज द स्टेप कि एक्सप्लोरेटरी डेटा एनालिसिस करना है हमें इस डेटा सेट में. तो हम लोग क्या करेंगे, चैट जीपीटी में वापस जाएंगे, मैं ये लिखूंगा कि प्लीज राइट अ पाइथन कोड to load and perform exploratory data analysis on loan application data set, right? I can go ahead and do this, right? So देखो इसने बहुत कुछ ऐसा करके दे दिया मेरे को, राइट? सो मुझे पता नहीं क्या कोड दिया है, बट कॉपी करते, राइट? And let's try to run this, right? Let's try to run this. So we already have our data set, so we don't need to maybe let's say load it again. We have this. So let's एक बार try करते हैं run करने का कि run कर पा रहे हैं कि नहीं, right? And कुछ error आ गया कि could not interpret application input application status. तो application status का कुछ error आया है जहां पे application status नहीं है, वो variable, वो status है, right? So this is status only. And let's go ahead and try to run this again, right? So आप देखो चैट जीपीटी ने कोड डाला, एंड जो हमने पहले भी निकाला था ना कि कितने डेटा सेट में कितने एप्लीकेशन लेट्स से यस वाले थे, एज इन दे वर अप्रूव्ड. सो इट इज सेइंग दैट दिस इज अराउंड 400 समथिंग, राइट? दिस इज व्हाट वी अर्लियर कैलकुलेटेड. आपको मैं दिखा देता हूं जस्ट सो यू डोंट फॉरगेट. यू रिमेंबर, यू सी दिस वन. तो इसी को इसने क्या किया कि बोला कि थोड़ा सा विजुअली दिखाते हैं, थोड़ा आपको समझ में आएगा, राइट? सो वी डिड अ लॉट ऑफ ऑपरेशंस हियर। हमने कुछ डिस्क्रिप्ट पहले 5 रो प्रिंट करे, राइट? सो यहाँ पे वी प्रिंटेड आउट फर्स्ट 5 रोज ऑफ आवर डेटा सेट। देन हमने क्या किया, कुछ कुछ स्टैटिस्टिक्स जनरेट किया अलग अलग वेरिएबल्स के। तो एप्लीकेंट इनकम के टोटल कितने काउंट है, मीन क्या है उस वेरिएबल का, स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन क्या है, एंड दिस इज व्हाट वी डू फॉर ऑल द अदर न्यूमेरिक वेरिएबल्स, राइट? एंड even if you're not able to understand this is totally fine, right? Because you will be learning this how to do such analysis on a data set. मीन का मतलब क्या है, 75% परसेंटाइल किसको बोला जा रहा है, मैक्स क्या है, राइट? सो यू विल लर्न ऑल अबाउट दिस, but overall these are the statistics which the code generated. It also is saying that there are like some variables like this dependence, right? It has around 599 values which are non null. तो बाकी के जो मेरा 15 वैल्यू है, बिकॉज टोटल वैल्यूज टोटल कितने हैं, 614, तो 15 वैल्यू नल है, एज इन उसका उसके बारे में पता नहीं है, राइट? यू कैन सी हियर दैट मिसिंग हाउ मेनी मिसिंग वैल्यूज इन द डेटा सेट फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर वेरिएबल. तो जेंडर इज नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर 13 एग्जांपल्स और 13 रोज. मैरिड वाला स्टेटस भी 3 एप्लीकेशन में नहीं पता है हमें, right? So you can see that credit history is also not available for like 50 applications. So we are dealing with some of the missing values here, right? And ChatGPT gave us this nice histogram plot where it is showing distribution of application status, right? It has also generated these like very interesting pair plot of numerical variables, right? To see if there is some sort of correlation or not, right? So your red would be, let's say, I think अगर आप देखोगे, so red would be red and blue, these are like the two values, right? Yes or no वाले हैं, and उसके हिसाब से देखो यहाँ पे ये सारे चार्ट जनरेट कर दे, right? Even though we don't exactly understand कि ये चार्ट क्या बता रहा है, right? So for example, if you look at the loan amount variable, right? So you can see their distribution and you can think about something like this, right? It also gave us something called a correlation heat map, right? And these are like standard exercise when you do exploratory data analysis. So जब भी आप ये करते हो तो ये सब स्टैंडर्ड चीजें होती है जो आप करते हो, राइट? सो मुझे कुछ नहीं आता था अभी तक, मैंने पाइथन का कोड कुछ भी नहीं जानता था, बट चैट जीपीटी से मुझे पता था कि क्या करना है, एंड वही मैंने चैट जीपीटी को बोला, एंड इट वाज एबल टू गिव मी दैट काइंड ऑफ लेट्स से आउटपुट, राइट? सो कुछ कुछ एनालिसिस हमें मिल गया यहाँ पे. So are you guys following me so far? Are you guys following me so far कि चैट जीपीटी से कैसे ये कोड जनरेट होके आ गया? देखो चैट जीपीटी से यहां से कोड जनरेट करा ना, देखो यहां पे मैंने क्या लिखा था कि प्लीज राइट अ पाइथन कोड टू लोड एंड परफॉर्म एक्सप्लोरेटरी डेटा एनालिसिस ऑन लोन एप्लीकेशन डेटा सेट. ऊपर में ऑलरेडी हमने लोन डेटा सेट के बारे में बता दिया था कि ये सारे वेरिएबल्स है. नाउ यू कैन सी हियर दैट इट जनरेटेड द कोड, एंड दैट इज व्हाट आई जस्ट कॉपी पेस्टेड हियर, एंड थोड़ा सा ट्वीक करा एंड वी आर एबल टू गेट दिस, राइट? तो बहुत आसान हो गया हमारा काम, राइट? सो आप रियलाइज कर पाओगे key to become a good data scientist, right? What you shouldn't know, let's say कि how to write code और क्या library use करना है क्या, of course वो आना चाहिए थोड़ा मोड़ा, but you should know what to do, right? अगर मुझे पता ही नहीं होता कि सबसे पहले ईडीए करना है तो मैं कर ही नहीं पाता, राइट? सो आई शुड नो व्हाट टू डू, देन हाउ टू डू इट वो बाद में आ जाएगा, वो चैट जीपीटी भी कर दे रहा है, राइट? अगर आपको पता ही नहीं है कि एक्सप्लोरेटरी डेटा एनालिसिस करना है ताकि एक अच्छा ट्रेनिंग डेटा सेट बना सके, तो आपको चैट जीपीटी भी मिल जाएगा तो सही से नहीं कर पाओगे, राइट? बट इफ आई नो कि क्या करना है, सो हाउ टू डू इट, दैट आई विल इजीली फिगर आउट थ्रू चैट जीपीटी. ओके, सो ये चीज हो गया. नाउ अब हम क्या बोल रहे हैं कि फीचर इंजीनियरिंग अब हमें करना है, राइट? सो वी वांट टू लेट्स से क्रिएट न्यू फीचर्स. सो फॉर एग्जांपल हाउ कैन वी डू और अचीव दैट, राइट? सो हाउ कैन वी डू और अचीव दैट? सो ओवरऑल लेट्स से मैं आपको मैं एक प्रॉम्प्ट लिख रहा हूं, ठीक है? चैट जीपीटी में अगेन सॉरी, राइट. सो चैट जीपीटी में अगेन मैं क्या कर रहा हूं, मैं लिख रहा हूं कि अभी मैंने ईडीए कर लिया, नाउ राइट अ पाइथन कोड टू परफॉर्म फीचर इंजीनियरिंग, राइट? बिकॉज मे बी जो वेरिएबल्स एग्जिस्ट करते हैं दे आर नॉट लाइक वेरी इंफॉर्मेटिव इन अ वे, and I might not be able to make a, let's say a good decision on just on the basis of that, because 12 ही columns है, total 11 independent variables. Maybe I can create newer variables which can tell me even more, right? So let's go ahead and just write this code, right? Very simple prompt, write a Python code to perform feature engineering. तो देखो इसने क्या बोला, कुछ कुछ कोड लिख रहा है कि लेबल एनकोडर कर रहा है, जेंडर को एनकोड कर रहा है, डमीज निकाल रहा है, न्यूमेरिकल कॉलम्स निकाल रहा है, राइट? सो कुछ ना कुछ इसने करके ये दे दिया, राइट? सो नाउ मे बी दिस डज नॉट क्रिएट न्यू वेरिएबल्स, सो मैं थोड़ा सा प्रॉम्प्ट चेंज कर देता हूँ, राइट अ पाइथन कोड टू जनरेट new features which could be really useful to the model. So मैंने ऐसा एक टेक्स्ट लिखा, राइट अ पाइथन कोड टू जनरेट. सो अब मे बी इट कैन, देखो तो इसने बोला डेट इनकम रेशियो एक वेरिएबल क्रिएट किया. सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड डू दिस, एंड दिस इज गोइंग टू बी लाइक रियली इंटरेस्टिंग, राइट? सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड जंप टू आवर कोलैब अगेन, राइट? तो हमने ईडीए कर लिया यहाँ पे. अभी हमें क्या करना है नेक्स्ट? सो नेक्स्ट स्टेप इज टू, लेट्स से, परफॉर्म फीचर इंजीनियरिंग, राइट? ये चीज हमें कैसे पता चला कि अभी फीचर इंजीनियरिंग करनी है? तो ये हमें चैट जीपीटी से ही पहले पता चला, राइट? सो इसने जो कोड दिया मैंने कॉपी पेस्ट कर लिया, राइट? सो डेटा सेट ऑलरेडी लोडेड है मेरा, सो आई डोंट नीड टू लोड इट अगेन. फीचर इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं, सो इसने एक वेरिएबल बनाया, नया वेरिएबल, इट डज नॉट एग्जिस्ट बिफोर, एंड इट कॉल्स दैट वेरिएबल एज डेट इनकम रेशियो, राइट? विच इज बेसिकली एप्लीकेंट का इनकम प्लस को एप्लीकेंट का इनकम डिवाइडेड बाई लोन अमाउंट, राइट? सो इनकम डिवाइडेड बाई लोन अमाउंट. सो इनकम लेट्स से 1 लाख रुपए है, एंड लोन अमाउंट लेट्स से 2 लाख है, राइट? सो दिस विल बी 1/2 overall. So debt income ratio will be 0.5, right? So that means I'm trying to take 2x loan, let's say, as relative to my income. There's another variable that ChatGPT suggested us to create is something called loan income ratio. It is saying that this is loan amount divided by the applicant income or co-applicant income, right? So which is इसी का inverse हो गया, right? This is the inverse of that. Uh, then it is saying total income, let's say log. So applicant income plus co-applicant का income अगर मिला दोगे तो total income आ जाएगा. एंड यहाँ पे इसने बेसिकली इसी को थोड़ा सा अपडेट करके एक लैम्डा वैम्डा लिखा है जो आप लोग समझोगे, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट यू विल अंडरस्टैंड इन द क्लास लेटर ऑन, राइट? सो cool. Then it also created a new variable called credit income interact, right? Which is credit history into total income overall, right? So and this could be like bizarre. So of course you need to understand what is, how can you interpret the meaning of this variable, right? So let's go ahead and just do this, because I'm not trying to go into the yeah, total income तो नहीं है एक बार. So let's print the columns first and see कि कुछ मिसिंग तो नहीं है. So देखो यहाँ पे क्या है कि एप्लीकेंट इनकम है, को एप्लीकेंट इनकम है, एंड टोटल इनकम, राइट? सो टोटल इनकम लॉग लिख देते हैं इसको, टोटल इनकम लेट्स से लॉग फॉर एग्जांपल. नाउ लेट्स गो अहेड एंड ट्राई टू डू दिस, राइट? अब मैं डेटा सेट अपना प्रिंट करता हूँ, लेट्स से पहला 5 रो. सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड प्रिंट our first 5 rows. So now you can see that it has created new variables, right? So आप देखो हम लोग जेंडर, मैरिड, डिपेंडेंस, एजुकेशन था, सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड था, एप्लीकेंट, लोन अमाउंट, टर्म, क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री, एरिया, स्टेटस तक सब कुछ था. But now we have like newer variables created, which is saying debt income ratio is 0.03, right? Which is like 3%, right? And loan income ratio is around 25.6. Total income log is 13.2. Credit income interact, whatever be the variable, right? But you can see that it suggested that, hey, I can create newer variables, right? Let's see, if you're not even satisfied with these variables, what I can do is go to ChatGPT again, right? I can say, hey, can you generate um, other new features which could be really important? So let's say if I write this in chat gpt, maybe it can so देखो dependence percentage हो गया. So now you can see if I just copy paste, let's say, these code, hang on, so copy paste कर देते हैं इसको. Now you can see that here it has suggested me that I can create new variables, right? which is loan term income ratio, dependence percentage, right? And so if you have good domain knowledge, right, domain का knowledge अच्छा है, तभी आप ये अच्छे variables create कर सकते हो, right? कि लोन और इनकम को डिवाइड करके एक वेरिएबल बना देते हैं, मे बी दिस कैन टेल मी समथिंग मोर, which let's say term and income alone would not help me, but इनको combine कर देंगे and we calculate a ratio, so then this can maybe tell me more about, let's say, the decision, right? So overall ये हो सकता है, right? So ये सारा हमने, let's say, ये भी बना सकते हैं, we can create this, राइट? यहाँ पे भी इशू आया है, नॉट सपोर्टेड बिटवीन इंस्टेंसेस ऑफ फ्लोट्स एंड ऑल, तो हमें वो कन्वर्ट करना होगा, मे बी लेट्स से डिपेंडेंट्स वाला हम लोग हटा सकते हैं। सो ऑफकोर्स थोड़ा मोड़ा तो आपको आना चाहिए कि कैसे कोड को हम लोग ठीक करेंगे। टोटल इनकम इज नॉट, या आई कैन राइट एज लॉग, सो नाउ होपफुली दिस शुड वर्क। टोटल इनकम लॉग क्या था? अच्छा, कैपिटल में था, एल। सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड रन दिस। सो देखो ये कोड मेरा रन हो गया। अभी मैं फिर से डीएफ हेड कर दूंगा 5, पहले के 5 रो प्रिंट कर रहा हूं। सो नाउ यू कैन सी अपार्ट फ्रॉम द फर्स्ट 5 वेरिएबल्स दैट वी हैड क्रिएटेड, it also created newer variables, right? So now you can see that by engineering newer features, my data set has become richer. It has more information, and probably that can be like really useful in terms of how I'm going to, let's say, build this classifier, right? So is everyone with me so far? आप लोगों को समझ में आ रहा है कि मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? I know there would be some things where you might be getting confused, but overall चैट जीपीटी से कैसे यूज करके वेरिएबल्स बना सकते हैं? आर यू गाइस विथ मी ऑन दिस? कैन यू, या, डू अ थम्स अप ऑन द चैट, राइट? कैन यू डू अ थम्स अप ऑन द चैट इफ यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस, राइट? सिंपल ही है, पेशेंटली सुनोगे, यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड अ लॉट ऑफ दिस, राइट? सो चैट जीपीटी इज लाइक रियली पावरफुल। अब देखो यहाँ पे we are able to generate newer variables, right? अब now वापस चलते हैं, अपने steps देखते हैं एक बार क्या है। So we have been able to do some sort of feature engineering. Of course, this is not the exhaustive set of variables that I wanted to create for this data set, but just to show you an example, we did this using ChatGPT, right? So now next is I want to split the data set, right, into train and test. I don't know how to do this, right? So now can I ask ChatGPT to do this for me, right? Can I ask chat gpt to do this for me, right? So basically what I can write in chat gpt, so मैं ऐसा लिखूंगा कि now write a python code to split the data into train and test, right? मैं specifically बोल सकता हूँ keep the split in 80-20 ratio, for example, right? So now let's say if I go ahead and do this, right? So it is saying that sklearn का ये import कर लो, ये data set है, ये variable है आपका. So let's go ahead and copy paste this. We might need to do some changes here, but मैं इसको यहाँ पे लिखता हूँ. Next is let's say splitting the data, right? So total 614 rows है. अब टेस्ट डेटा में कुछ रोज आ जाएंगे. So let's say data set already है मेरे पास. I don't need to do this. X would be all my, let's say, uh, independent variable. Y would be my dependent variable, which is my application status, right? So now I can go ahead and do this. Let's run this. ये काम हो गया. अब now देखो, in my training set I have 491 rows, and in my test set I have 123 rows. So I am able to now do this step using ChatGPT. Now let's go back and try to, let's say, build the model, right? So this is the main part, and you will see that this is very simple. So now what I'll do, I'll go ahead and in the chat GPT, I will just write uh, now go ahead and create and build a machine learning model or machine learning classifier for this data set, right? कौन से एल्गोरिदम पे ये बनाएगा? सो मैं बता सकता हूं, यू कैन चूज, लेट्स से, अ ट्री बेस्ड क्लासिफायर, फॉर एग्जांपल. सो मैंने ऐसा लिख दिया, फॉर एग्जांपल, बिकॉज आई नो कि ट्री बेस्ड क्लासिफायर्स आर गुड. सो अगर आप देखो यहाँ पे, सो नाउ इट हैज जनरेटेड दिस कोड. लेट्स गो अहेड एंड कॉपी दिस अगेन in our notebook, right? सो अब देखो, अभी नेक्स्ट स्टेप क्या है हमारा? ट्रेनिंग और बिल्डिंग द मॉडल, ट्रेनिंग द मॉडल, राइट? ट्रेन डेटा सेट पे ही ट्रेन करेंगे ओवरऑल. सो नाउ आई कैन गो हेड एंड कॉपी दिस. मेरे पास ट्रेन एंड टेस्ट ऑलरेडी आ चुका है, सो चैट जीपीटी बार बार दे देता है, सो इसको इग्नोर कर सकते हैं हम लोग सिंपली. And there are some libraries that I've imported. Maybe you can cut and keep them in another code cell सिंपलिसिटी के लिए. नाउ दिस इज वेयर वी कैन बिल्ड आवर मॉडल, राइट? सो आप देखो कुछ लिख रहा है, रैंडम फॉरेस्ट क्लासिफायर डॉट फिट कर रहा है, विच इज essentially training your model. It is then predicting on the test data set, right? And then it is evaluating. So let's go ahead and run this, right? So यहाँ पे could not convert string to float, right? So let's say मुझे नहीं पता इसको कैसे solve करना है. What I can do is go to ChatGPT and I can say that, hey, I got this error, right? So you don't even have to worry about it. So there seems like an issue. So ये क्या बता रहा है कि क्या कर लो? So gender ये सब के लिए ये सारे label encoder कुछ कुछ कर लो आप, right? So maybe let's go ahead and try to do this, right? And हम लोग ट्रेन टेस्ट स्प्लिट ऐसे ही करेंगे फिर से. सो मैं इतना कोड मोरलेस कॉपी पेस्ट कर देता हूँ, ठीक है, जो मेरे को जिससे इशू आ रहा है ओवरऑल. सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड ट्राई टू, या मैं यहाँ पे कॉपी पेस्ट कर देता हूँ. सो नाउ, सो लेबल में हमने बना लिया, एप्लीकेशन स्टेटस नहीं है, स्टेटस है, ठीक है. वी नो दिस फॉर श्योर. सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड रन दिस अगेन, राइट? सो देखो यहाँ पे भी इशू आया, एप्लीकेशन स्टेटस है यहाँ पे, तो इसको स्टेटस डालेंगे बिकॉज दिस इज द वेरिएबल विच डज नॉट एग्जिस्ट. सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड रन दिस अगेन. ये रन हो गया, राइट? सो वी आर एबल टू रन दिस. सो नाउ अब मेरे पास ये है, चलो अब इसको रन करते हैं. सो कुड नॉट कन्वर्ट स्ट्रिंग टू फ्लोट, राइट? 3+ तो कुछ इशू आया है अगेन. सो ऑफ कोर्स कुछ भी अगर एरर आएगा आपके डेटा सेट में, यहाँ पे कुछ इशू दिख रही है, तो हमें वो सब कुछ देखना पड़ेगा. एंड विल नीड टू, लेट्स से, fix this. So for example, I can go to my chat gpt again, and I can just paste this. So it says that it looks like the issue is related to the dependents column, right, which seems to have the string value 3+. So यहाँ पे, so ये बोल रहे कि मे बी इसको आप ये कर लो, राइट? सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड शेयर दिस अगेन. यहाँ पे हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं कि इसको जस्ट कॉपी पेस्ट कर देते हैं, यहाँ पे डिपेंडेंस को 3+ को इंट में कन्वर्ट कर दे रहे हैं. सो लेट्स सी क्या होता है. कुछ इशू नहीं है इसमें, राइट? एप्लीकेशन स्टेटस इज द ओके, ऑल राइट. सो एक बार फिर से क्या करते हैं गाइज, हम लोग राइट. सो ऑफ कोर्स वी आर रनिंग इनटू एरर. हमें देखना है कि डेटा सेट में क्या इशू हो रहा है. It is saying that cannot convert float and nan to integer, right? And this could be issue with this particular variable. So maybe what I can do is maybe, let's say, I can just drop this particular variable um, uh, from there. So I think hang on. राइट. सो कुछ कुछ नल वैल्यूज भी होंगे उसमें. मे बी लेट्स से कि मैं डिपेंडेंट्स का डेटा नहीं पास करना चाहता, राइट? सो व्हाट आई कैन डू इज बेसिकली एक्स से, let's say what I can do is I can write x dot, let's say, drop, and मैं वो variable drop कर देता हूँ which is dependence, right? So just to see if this works for us or not, right? So because we are just doing whatever that we know from chat gpt. हमें हमने पढ़ा तो नहीं अभी तक machine learning, right? And this is what we are trying to do now. एक बार फिर से इसको रन करते हैं, कुछ एरर आ रहा है क्या फिर से. So input x contains nan and random forest classifier does not accept missing values, right? तो आप इसको कर सकते हो. अब ये अगर एरर है, right? So chat gpt will also help us here. Hey, can we resolve this error, right? So कुछ भी एरर आएगा आप डाल दो, उसको पता है context, it will tell you that hey, you can do something like this, right? So it is saying that this contains, because there are missing values in our data set. तो इसने बोला कि एक simple imputed लगाते हैं, and we should be able to, let's say, uh, सो एनकोड कर दिया है, राइट। देखो यहाँ पे इट इज सेइंग दैट इम्प्यूटर एक लगा लो आप। सो दिस इज व्हाट इट इज सजेस्टिंग टू डू दिस, राइट। सो क्या क्या कोड है, मैं ये जस्ट कॉपी पेस्ट कर देता हूँ यहाँ से। आई विल जस्ट शेयर दिस अगेन। सो ये लिख दिया मैंने यहाँ पे, और चैट जीपीटी से एक और लाइन कॉपी पेस्ट कर लेता हूँ जहाँ पे इम्प्यूट कर रहे हैं ये लोग, राइट। सो and more or less whatever that we have done so far, right, we didn't need to know anything as such, right? So let's say let's go ahead and run this अब now। ये वाला जो है कोड इसको नीचे कर देते हैं, तो अब इसको रन करते हैं, देखते हैं कि ये अगेन काम कर रहा है कि नहीं, राइट। सो ऑफ कोर्स हमने डीएफ इंप्यूट करा था, बट हम लोग इसको फिर से एक बार रन कर देते हैं, एंड देन इसको फिर से रन करते क्लासिफायर को। सो अगेन इट इज सेइंग दैट कुछ एरर है। सो हमें मोरलेस देखना पड़ेगा कि कौन से वेरिएबल में क्या इशू हो रही है, कहाँ पे मिसिंग वैल्यूज है, एंड दैट इज व्हाट विल नीड टू फिक्स, राइट। बट आई होप you guys are able to understand, right, that ChatGPT can do a bulk of our work, right? So if we don't know what are the steps to do, let's say when you're building a machine learning model, you can just straightforward ask to ChatGPT, and it will tell you that hey, you can follow these steps, right? It's not guaranteed though that you will be able to, let's say, run those seamlessly, as here we are seeing that we are running into some of the problems, right? If I spend, let's say, a minute or two, we'll be able to of course figure this out। but the point is, if you know what to do, अगर आपको पता है कि क्या करना है मेरे को, तब कोड आपको अगर दिक्कत हो रही है कोड लिखने में, तो उसमें दिक्कत नहीं है। चैट जीपीटी कैन जनरेट गुड अमाउंट ऑफ कोड फॉर यू। इट कैन ऑल्सो गाइड यू। So let's say you can say that hey, this is my code, can you suggest some improvement on top of it? So it can actually do that, right? So of course we are not able to complete all these steps that we had written earlier, right? हमने क्या क्या steps लिखे थे, हमने building the model evaluation, right? So this is where we sort of got stuck, right? Where we are seeing that um, if you are using random forest classifier, we need to treat null values, and if you have good enough understanding, you will be able to, yeah, do some imputation so that you can take care of null values, and will be able to train the model, right? But and this is what you can do overall, right? So the point is overall to become, I think, in future, right? Because tools like ChatGPT are only going to get better, right? So the most important thing as a data scientist or as an analyst, right, you need to really focus on is what you want to do, आपको करना क्या है। Yeah, always try to ask this question। अगर उस पे clarity है, if you have clarity on what you want to do, then how are you going to do it, right? It's something that, let's say, you can ask chat gpt and it can give you, right? Of course एक और चीज मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, right? So there's one more thing, right? So this data set was already given to us in a form of csv, right? But in let's say in when you're working, right, in your company, uh, most likely you'll not be able to get this kind of csv. Rather, you'll need to query your data from a database, right? So what I can actually do, right, I can also say that hey, my training my data, my loan data set resides in a sql database, for example, right? Can you a python code write a python query to extract the loan data, um, for last, let's say, last 2 years, for example, right? सो देखो, यहाँ पे भी इसने बोल दिया, अगर लेट्स से दिस डेटा सेट रिसाइड समवेयर in your let's say organization, so we can write something like this, right, where we can connect to our database. So we already got the code for it, so I didn't need to know any sql here। I just needed to know कि यार मेरा डेटा कहाँ पे है, and probably वो डेटा क्वेरी करने के लिए मुझे sql चाहिए होगा, इतना ही मुझे पता था बस, that's it। सो इट गेव मी एवरीथिंग कि क्या क्वेरी लिखना है, क्या डेटा होगा, अब डेटा बेस का डाल दो यहाँ पे डिटेल। सो नाउ यू विल बी लाइक able to run this, right? So once you actually connect this to a real database, you'll be able to let's say, get the data through this query, right? So let's say if you're not getting CSV, you can query the data and you can have a data frame overall, right? So most important thing which I have realized, right? So the most important thing, if you think right in depth, is that the most important thing is basically what you want to do, right? So अगर आपको पता है कि क्या करना है, तभी आप सही से कर पाओगे, and that is the mark of a good data scientist, right? They know what to do overall. So maybe let's say इतने सारे libraries है, इतने सारे functionalities है Python में, right? I might not know all of them possibly, right? बट आई नो व्हाट टू डू. सो मैं, मगर मुझे अगर पता करना है कि कैसे ये चीज होगी, सो आई कैन गूगल इट. पहले हम लोग गूगल ही करते थे जब चैट जीपीटी नहीं था. बट नाउ वी हैव चैट जीपीटी, वी कैन सिंपली आस्क इट that hey, I want to do this task, can you help me do it, right? And it will tell you, it will tell you with all the glory, with all preciseness and all clarity that hey, this is how you can do it. तो how वाला part पे ज्यादा focus मत करो. But over time, as you master, let's say, Python, as you know more and more about, let's say, machine learning techniques, you'll become even more familiar with it, right? So focus अभी किस पे करना है कि क्या करना है काम, क्या चीज करनी है मुझे, right? So if you're able to express that to any tool such as ChatGPT, you'll be able to do most of your work, right? So
Thank you so much, Vikas, for all the information and the class.
so, hang on. Don't we have ChatGPT 4.0 extension that could connect with our Google Colab? We don't have it, but it's already available on your platform, right? So, I'll just show you. So, if you're a student at Alma Better, right? So, if you go to your platform, no. So, I hope you guys are able to see the platform. If you go to the platform in help, you can see this AI chat, right? So it opens another page, which is where I can do the same kind of thing, right? So let's say जो भी मैंने यहाँ पे डाला था ना, so let's go ahead and try to maybe do the same thing. So let's go ahead and yeah, run this, right? So it will tell you more or less the same set of things, right? So you can use this. This is GPT 4, right? This is not even GPT 3, right? So you just use that 3.5 in fact. So better model है, तो अच्छे से और भी बताएगा आपको, right? So you can use this voice chat as well, which we have built, let's say, in house, which is a tweaked version of chat gpt, but here you can save a lot of your prompts uh, on a day-to-day basis, right? So this is more or less I wanted to cover in today's class, right? I know this might have gone a bit technical for all our students if you're not actually doing machine learning. So I'm sure that 40% of things would have flown over your head. But the point is, we need to just be like really smart in our approach, right? We have to really think about what we want to do, right? We don't have to do all the hard manual labor, right? Chat gpt can do some of the tasks and will outsource it to do that. But the real use of your mind, your skill, will come in terms of defining how you're going to solve a problem, right? So so can you guys sort of give me a confirmation if you're able to sort of understand what we discussed in this class, right? So I know this went a bit technical. You might not have known about कि क्रॉस वैलिडेशन क्या है, प्रोसेसिंग क्या है, मॉडल बिल्डिंग क्या है, बट काम आप देख रहे हो कि कैसे काम कर सकते हैं हम लोग. आर यू गाइज एबल टू अप्रिशिएट how ChatGPT makes our life easier? It is not going to replace you, by the way, right? Because there has to be someone who needs to supervise what ChatGPT is spitting out, right? हमने देखा कि गलत गलत कुछ भी आ गया था, right? So ChatGPT is not going to replace your job as a data scientist. It's in fact going to make you even more effective as a data scientist, right? So can I get a thumbs up from everyone who is in this session and there you are able to understand, right? So so I try to explain in this class what is machine learning, what is data science, and then we try to take an example where we learned a bit about the loan application data set and the process, right? And we try to use chat gpt because we know that we don't know anything about how to build machine learning, but we are still able to do a bulk of the task, right? Of course we could not train because there was some error, and we can fix it, right? We know what is the error, that there's some missing values which needs to be imputed, we can do it, right? But the point is not that, right? The point is that it makes our life easier. इतना आसान हो गया लाइफ कि भाई मेहनत करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, राइट? तो मेहनत करो, थोड़ा पढ़ाई वढ़ाई करो, बट आपको टेंशन नहीं लेनी है, राइट? काम आपका बहुत सारा हो जाएगा। अगर बॉस ने बोल दिया है कि भाई ये काम करके दो, तो आप कॉन्फिडेंटली बोलो कि हाँ भाई मैं करके दे दूंगा, एंड देन यू फिगर आउट कि कैसे करोगे, ठीक है? इफ यू डोंट नो, राइट? सो सो टेल अस हाउ टू क्रिएट फ्रंट एंड। सो अभी देखो, फ्रंट एंड पे हम लोग फोकस नहीं करेंगे, राइट? यू माइट बी एबल टू क्रिएट अ स्ट्रीमलेट ऐप, एंड दैट इज समथिंग वी टीच इन दिस स्पेशलाइजेशन ट्रैक। बट you can also ask ChatGPT, hey, can you build a simple streamlit app for this loan classifier, right? So maybe I can do that, and I'll just show you what it can tell me, right? So एक बार just मैं दिखाता हूँ आपको कि ये भी कर सकते हैं। So can you create uh, a streamlit app for this loan classifier model, right? So something like this. I don't know how do I create this app, but it's saying that hey, you can create this, right? So we need to of course update our model file here, and you can see that okay, input form में ये सारी चीजें होंगी। Maybe let's go ahead and do this एंड ट्राई करते हैं रन करने का। ऑफ कोर्स रन करके हम लोग कर नहीं पाएंगे बिकॉज आवर मॉडल इज नॉट येट रेडी, बट यू कैन सी दैट दिस इज मोर लेस द टेक्स्ट दैट इट हैज गिवन अस, राइट? एंड overall अगर आप देखोगे, this is what we can also maybe comment out, and then if you run this, right, you're going to, let's say, so no module found streamlit, and you can import streamlit, right? So this is not available, we'll need to maybe do some sort of, let's say, pip install. So ये सब तो थोड़ा मोड़ा पता होना चाहिए कि कैसे मैं इंस्टॉल कर सकता हूँ कोई पैकेज, एंड ये सब सारी चीजें पता चलेंगी, राइट, आपको। बट ओवरऑल you need to know, of course, all the stuff, but you don't have to remember everything. That is the point, right? आपको पता थोड़ा होना चाहिए, but सब कुछ याद नहीं होना चाहिए. It's not required that you remember everything, and it's impossible to recall and remember all of this stuff, right? But if you know how to do this task, right? So देखो, इसने ट्राई बोला कि मैं रन कर रहा हूँ, but it ran into certain error, right? So pre-processed data input, let's say if I run this again, so pre-processed data is not refined. So of course हम लोग कुछ ना कुछ improve कर सकते हैं so that this works actually. So when we are able to build the model and everything works, we'll be able to have a streamlit app running, right? So इसमें आप देखो, आप एक ऐप भी बना सकते हो, so कोई इतना difficult नहीं है। I'll just showing you that thing, right? So अब देखो यहाँ पे streamlit का कोड मैंने डाला, even though we are getting some error, we know that we can fix it, right? But the important thing is I did not know how to create an app using Streamlit, but I know only कि Streamlit से app बना सकते हैं, तो देखो बना दिया हमने, right? So of course you can figure out कि error कैसे resolve करेंगे, but apart from it, we can do a lot of tasks easily using ChatGPT, right? So that is more or less the summary for this class. So I hope you guys were able to, let's say, so Shubham, is this clear? Ki how can you create front end? So of course you need to learn how to, let's say, work with Streamlit, but let's use ChatGPT. अगर इसमें कुछ नया स्किल तो नहीं चाहिए ना, अगर आपको पता ही क्या करना है तो बताओ, आप मन की बात बोलो ChatGPT को, दिल से बोलो और वो बता देगा, right? So this is what we want to do. Cool. All right, guys. So I think we had a great session, and probably we are open to discussing the Q&A. So Chirag, can we go ahead and discuss some of the questions which were raised in Q&A?
Yes, for sure, Vikas. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone had a good session. Thank you so much, Vikas, for being here. And yes, if you want to talk personal, I have just shared my details. Sumit Smith, right? Mr. Panda, yeah, here are the details. You can reach out to me on this phone number over a WhatsApp or a direct call as well, or you can write your queries on the email as well. Anyone in the session can do it. Okay. Anyone has a doubt as of now for the class which has been done, or is there anything which we can help you out with?
And meanwhile, I'm sharing the Jamboard and the notebook again with everyone. So Jamboard एक बार मैं PDF save करके I'll just share this in the chat. Okay. So hang on. So I'm sharing the link to the Jamboard which we are using today to, let's say, visualize certain things. So you can use that, and then here is our notebook again, and recording will be available, so you can go through it again. I think, yeah. Okay. So Q&A में कुछ कुछ questions है. How can I get internship in any company, because no one company responds, right? So yeah, उसके लिए एक strategically आपको approach करना होगा तृप्ति, right? So if companies are not responding, there must be some issue with, let's say, either your resume, or something that they are not willing to bet on you, right? You are getting rejected because, as see, companies also receive tons of applications, right? And it's impossible, more or less, to let's say shortlist people manually, right? So mostly automated ही रहते हैं ये सारी चीजें. So company respond नहीं करी, आपको strategy थोड़ी बदलनी पड़ेगी. You have to build a better portfolio, you have to build a better resume, so that, and you have to write good relevant projects. So that's how you can get a good internship, right? So of course we can talk about it, right? So you can reach out to me personally. So you can mail me at vikash@almabetter.com if you want to talk more about it, right? So, but we keep posting a lot of internships on our platform, right? So I'll just show you if you guys haven't seen our platform. But hang on, right? So you can see that on our platform there is this new job board that we have created, and if you click on internship, no, and if you click on, let's say, data science internships, you'll find all the internships, right? So there's a machine learning engineer internship at Wayfair. Then you'll find a data analyst internship at Ring. Then data management intern at Craft Worldwide, right? So maybe you can use this platform to go ahead and apply for internship, right? But just applying does not guarantee you success, right? So you have to be on at your best. Your resume has to be like really great. Your projects have to be good, and whoever is shortlisting, right? They need to find that, okay, you have a convincing profile, you have that good attitude, and that is how you can get internship, right? Cool. What is the next question? Which type of learning is mostly used in industries in current time? So a lot of, so even though despite all this hype of generative AI, chat GPT and all, right, industries are still using a lot of traditional ML, right? So whatever that we are teaching, right, in the first 6 modules, which is in your foundation track, so that is what primarily industries are using, right? So they are not using very hi-fi stuff, like deep learning. There might be, let's say, one or two use cases for which they are using it, but for a lot of cases, so for example, there are so many banks and fintech and credit card companies, they need to have a credit risk model, let's say a machine learning model, right? And everyone is building that, and everyone has state of the art models, right? So this is what they use a lot, right? Which is primarily supervised learning. And there could be like classification problem and regression problem. We learned about classification. अब देखो, क्लासिफिकेशन में ये था कि यार लोन एप्लीकेशन अगर किसी ने भरा है तो उसको अप्रूव करना है, रिजेक्ट, तो ये क्लासिफिकेशन हो गया. अगर मान लो मैंने अप्रूव कर दिया, बट कितना लोन अमाउंट देना है, राइट? वो भी एक प्रॉब्लम है जो मैं प्रेडिक्ट कर सकता हूँ कि हाउ मच, so out of, let's say, 1 lakh limit, how much loan amount can I actually give as a company to this customer? So that will be a regression problem, right? Where we are trying to predict a continuous value, right? So this is supervised learning. हिंदी में पढ़ाया है यार, इंग्लिश ठीक है. आई आई एम परसुइंग बीटेक इन ईसी. आई वांट टू बिकम अ डेटा साइंटिस्ट. ग्रेट, पढ़ाई करते रहो, बन जाओगे. Can we get recordings of this lecture? Yes, it will be available. So if you come back to this event, no, later on, right? So just click on schedule, and there you'll have this option of watch replay. so you can just replay this event later on as well. Okay, PPT हमने शेयर कर दिया है, right? Right. Thanks. I'm applying, but some fraud calls comes to me, Tripti. So of course you keep applying, but be vigilant of, let's say, some people are always trying to scam you, right? Because usually internship में ऐसा होता है, बोलते हैं कि आप मुझे पैसे दो internship करने के लिए, and आपका internship हो जाएगा, right? So you don't have to get into it, right? Because if you get a good internship, it will more or less likely be paid. As in the companies will be giving you an internship stipend, right? They would not take money from you. So just be vigilant, Tripti, when you're applying for yeah, more cases. Okay. So I don't see any more question in the Q&A. So thank you again, everyone. And please connect to Chirag for any doubt or any issue. Can you tell me some good projects with ChatGPT for data science, right? So just go to the Alma Better platform, no? Just go to Alma Better platform, and you can find a ton of in tons of interesting projects. So let's say you can find a lot of really good projects in machine learning here, right? So let's say Netflix clustering, right? Health insurance classification, book recommendation. You'll also have access to a lot of EDA wale projects, like Airbnb bookings analysis, Play Store, right? So please go ahead and explore this. So these are also accessible to our free learners as well, right? So you won't just be able to, let's say, submit the project, but you can view everything, right? So please go ahead and explore these projects, right? Whoever mentioned, Monica, does it make sense? You can see projects, right, in the dashboard. Okay. Is there any platform from where we'll get ML projects and data for practice? So you'll get from the Alma Better platform only, Monali. All right. So nothing, right? How to build a resume for data analyst profile? Why don't you connect with me, Suraj? So I can tell you, right, what to think about it, right? But you can ask ChatGPT, you know, right? So let's say ChatGPT को पूछ लो कि कैसे बनाते हैं. देखो ChatGPT खुद बता देगा आपको. एक बार देखते हैं, right? So let's say how to build a resume फॉर गुड डेटा एनालिस्ट प्रोफाइल, राइट? सो बोल रहा है कि कॉन्टैक्ट इन्फॉर्मेशन डालो, समरी ऑब्जेक्टिव स्किल्स डालो, प्रोफेशनल एक्सपीरियंस डालो, एजुकेशन डालो, प्रोजेक्ट्स डालो, मेंशन सर्टिफिकेशन, मेंशन टेक्निकल टूल्स, मेंशन लैंग्वेजेस, कुछ अचीवमेंट अवार्ड्स है, कोई मेंबरशिप है, राइट? व्हाटएवर, राइट? सो सी is able to, देखो यहाँ पे ऐसे भी जनरेट कर दिया. So you can create a good profile. Of course you need to work on how are you writing your projects, because that's important, right? So how you write your project, because you need to understand whoever is going to, let's say, shortlist you, they are looking at something, right? And your project has to sort of relay that idea. Cool. सर, आई हैव डन माई मास्टर इन इकोनॉमिक्स, कैन आई स्टार्ट माई करियर एज अ डेटा साइंटिस्ट? तो पहले तो करियर सही लिखो आप, प्रियंका, बट यू कैन डेफिनेटली बिकम अ डेटा साइंटिस्ट, राइट? इकोनॉमिक्स में है, विच इज गुड. कुछ तो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है आपको, जैसे इकोनॉमिक्स, और मे बी यू कैन वर्क इन कंपनीज where you can be doing a lot of, let's say, data science work, which could be towards, let's say, finance side of things or economic side of things, right? So that is totally fine. Our Rhinemark, I think you're writing in, let's say, Spanish or something. Hang on, right, right. So let's see. So maybe I'll just translate this in English. Whoever ever is. So, could you recognize or could you tell me some of the best website platforms for learning data science? So, there's so many good platforms, right? So, let's say if you want to do a self-paced study, you can just go through a lot of really good YouTube tutorials, right? But let's say if you want to do a serious study, you want to study with a cohort and with a community. So, I would suggest Alma Better is the number one data science platform in India, and we have also gone international. So I would suggest that trust in us, and you'll be through. All right. Awesome. So cool. So I think we have been able to cover more or less everything. So Chirag, I think yeah, we can go ahead and wrap up now.
Sure, Vikas. Thank you so much for your inputs. Everyone in the session can let us know whatever queries they do have. I'll be happy to assist everyone. Although I've tried to reach out to all the numbers of questions which I've
Right.
received, do check.
Someone is Mhm. Someone is asking, does ChatGPT replace data scientists? I would say no, right? Because whatever output ChatGPT is going to give you, right, you'll have to supervise, right? अब blindly copy paste करके कर दोगे तो उससे काम नहीं होगा, right? Because it can make mistakes, right? So there has to be some sort of supervision, and supervision तभी होगा when you know what is the subject matter, right? So ChatGPT is not going to replace data scientists. Maybe it's going to make you more effective, right? So let's say earlier, if there were a team of 10 data scientists, and if you want to do the same amount of work, right? But now you have access to ChatGPT, maybe the team would need, let's say, seven folks, seven data scientists instead of 10. But let's say if you want to do more work, right? So then only 10, those 10 people can do more work as well, right? So you need to think about in this way. So ChatGPT is not going to definitely replace data scientists. Cool. All right, guys. So you have been an amazing audience so far, and we were able to, let's say, discuss a lot of really interesting concepts in machine learning, especially using ChatGPT. So we will be able to do a lot bulk of our task. So I think if you have any confusion, reach out to Chirag, and let's say understand if there is any confusion or issue. If you want to enroll, do we have any coupon code, Chirag, which, let's say, team can students can apply some discount if they're interested
Yeah,
in
they can
enrolling?
for surely. Once they reach out to my number or email, they will surely be able to have it. Right? And from the
Right, right,
marketing team,
right.
after the session is done, they will be sent an email as well.
Right, right. Awesome, awesome. All right, guys. So I know this is today is Saturday. You would have had, let's say, different plans to let's say travel here and there. But thank you for taking your time out to attend this session, and we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of, let's say, interaction with the students, and you have been amazing. So I'll see you guys on the other side of it, and that means, let's say, if you enroll in our course, we can connect over community, and probably you can also find me as your instructor for the class. So if you found my teaching interesting, probably you can try to enroll in Alma Better, and will our paths will definitely cross, right? So cool. Thank you so much again. And if you have any queries, just mail me at vikash@almabetter.com, or you can connect to Chirag. He can get you connected to me as well. So that's pretty much it. And yes, so weekend enjoy karo aap log, maze karo, and try to enroll in the course as soon as possible if you're really motivated, and Chirag will help you with any such admission problem or issue if you're facing, right? So thank you again, and I'll see you guys again later on, probably in another masterclass. So if you're joining that, cool. All right, thank you so much again. Take care, guys. Um, I'll see you then again later. All right. You can follow me over LinkedIn as well. So do send me an invite, and we can connect over LinkedIn too. Cool. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks Chirag, and thanks Alma Better team for, yeah, conducting this masterclass. Hope this was really useful for everyone joining the session. Cool. Thanks again.